Number 9, you're talking about power and privilege. Um, Forgive me, I'm not feeling great, so I'm just gonna power through this. Um, what do I think? How do I think power and privilege impacts the new student dialogues, and what does it mean to me? And how can you navigate difficult and triggering questions? Um, Power and privilege. I could not have told you what that meant before I became a PDF, but now that I am a PDF and I've had a lot of experience with um, different types of power and privilege, different agent, different target identities, and experiencing both sides. I think what power and privilege means to me is access to the resources and the ability to make change for the target group. Um, and that's what I really want power and privilege to mean to everyone, and that's what I want it to mean to me in every situation. Obviously, it doesn't, or I would have no time on my hands. I already don't have any time on my hands, but that's what I think the positive side of power and privilege is. Obviously, there are a lot of negatives that we see every day, but I think that it can be used for good, and that's what it should be used for. Um, it impacts the new student dialogues a in both a negative and a positive way because I think a lot of the cool kid syndrome and a lot of the resistance we get in our dialogues is from some kind of privilege that the participants feel that they have that makes them entitled to not pay attention or to make the dialogue difficult for other people to pay attention. But I do think that it can impact students positively when they realize the kind of power that they have and the kind of access that they have to make a difference. And one thing that's important to me and I think is really well exemplified through the dialogues is that you can make a difference to one person and that's still making a difference. So people can walk out of our dialogue and if only two people or even one person got anything out of it, that means that I've made a difference. And if that person goes out, it makes a difference to his or her two best friends. That's making an even bigger difference that feels like a small step, but it's still a small step toward a much greater process of bettering our world. Um, and how can you navigate difficult and triggering questions? Um, it was something that it was hard to get used to and to figure out the best way to navigate, but one thing that I think is really great about the dialogues is that you have a partner because you typically have different strategies for handling difficult and triggering questions or resistance. So, like my partner last year, I had Susanna and Marie, and Susanna's way of navigating difficult and triggering questions was to address it right then and there because she was not going to let it sit on her heart and want to address it, 2 hours later when she didn't have the opportunity. So if someone said something to her that was really difficult, she would challenge it on the spot. And for me, it's a much more internal process. Like I don't really like conflict. I don't like causing conflict by any means. So if someone asks me a triggering question that I cannot answer, the best thing for me to do is to have a partner because and especially a partner that knows me really well because both Susanna and Marie were able to know when something was really triggering me and I couldn't handle it, and then they would just be able to take the dialogue right there and spin it in a new direction. One thing that Marie is really good at is turning the question back on the student, which is like the best thing to do in a dialogue because the whole point is for them to speak. So that was something that I really appreciated her help with. But if it is a question that I feel like I can answer, I guess the way that I navigate it is taking a minute just to make sure that I know I'm okay answering it. I'm not going to botch it up by saying something I don't mean or by saying something hurtful or offensive or anything like that. And just taking that moment to check in with myself and say, like, can I move on? Yes, I can move on. Okay, here's my answer. And when you go into a setting where you're leading a group, I found for myself, it was often a natural instinct to kind of act like I know everything and to act like the teacher and the holier-than-thou character. Um, but I think that after some practice and some experience with dialogues, I found that the students responded a lot better towards someone who was on their level and who just was really honest. Obviously, it didn't work every time, and sometimes it really should have worked and didn't, and then that was even worse than it would have been if I hadn't been honest. But usually, if you're the one that walks in and says, "Hey guys, I'm so stressed out right now. I'm so sick right now. I feel like crap. Please bear with me. I realize that a lot of you are probably feeling the same things. So know that like I'm right there with you, and this is going to be a great experience. Just power through any setbacks that you have along the way." And then like people respond to that. Or if you get a really difficult question, like sometimes I would have to check in with myself out loud and just be like, okay, that was very, surprising, or give me a minute. I'm a little triggered right now. Give me a minute. I'm feeling a little stirred up. Like, and that like takes people down a peg, because sometimes we would have a dialogue where all the students would be resistant and difficult and talking to each other, not paying any attention. And then when I got a question like that, or when I just was trying to address the resistance, and I said to them like, guys, I'm so triggered right now. I can't even tell you how upset I am. I really would appreciate your respect in this moment, enough for you to stop talking and listen to what I have to say or to what this person has to say, um, because this is just hurting me more, And we had that one terrible dialogue that just was a mess, and everything went wrong. And even, my approaches of, this is really hard for me, this is really hurting me, this is the worst dialogue that I've ever been a part of. And Marie's opposite approaches of, this is so awesome, guys, like, come on, let's just power through, I love you all, you sound like such awesome people, your stories are so interesting. Like, both of our approaches didn't get through to these people. And that was like, it was so much harder than if we had just shut down and been like, well, whatever, if you're not going to listen, we're not going to listen. And like getting down to that vulnerable place and still being stomped on hurts so bad. But I think that after practice, that's the only way to really handle the situation the best way possible. Because if I had been resistant and I had gone down to the student's level of being really rude and just unfair, then I would have felt bad about it later. But telling them I'm really triggered and I'm really unhappy with the way this dialogue is going, and still having them not respond, I'm proud of saying that, because hopefully, even if they didn't show it in that room, it got to them and they felt bad about it later. And in the future, hopefully they won't do that again to someone else. So today's round robin presentations, I'm really excited. Our outlines, well, one of them looks spectacular. It's like 8 pages. Get excited, not scared. And the other one's a little shorter, so I'm looking forward to getting a lot of feedback and getting these babies started or finished. So that's the end of video log 9. Thanks.